My beloved child, before you move even 1 inch further, I want you to answer something within your own spirit. Have you ever felt a sudden heaviness in your heart without knowing why, a strange pull towards someone who has already crossed into the light, or a moment where you paused out of nowhere as if an unseen presence wanted you to stop and listen? And have you ever wondered why certain memories return at night? Why one person from your past refuses to fade from your thoughts? Why your heart tightens when you think of them? And why today of all days, your spirit felt an invisible hand guiding you to this very message? My beloved child, be still, for this is heaven speaking, and I, the Lord your God, have sent Archangel Michael to bring you a symbolic, deeply needed revelation from the one who loved you before their final breath, and even now loves you from beyond the veil. So before you scroll, listen, subscribe, hold your breath, and keep your eyes right here, because you're loved. One in spirit has been trying to reach you for longer than you realize, and today is the first moment you were truly open to hearing them. So pay attention to the way your heart beats right now, the warmth rising in your chest, the tingling in your hands, because this moment was written into your story long before you were born. And as Archangel Michael stands before you with his sword lowered as a symbol of peace, not battle, he whispers that your loved one has been crying not out of pain but out of longing, longing for you to finally understand the weight they carried, the truth they could not say, the apology they left unsaid, the gratitude they never expressed, and the concerns they held for your future. And as the heavens open above your symbolic path, I reveal to you a vast realm made entirely of light where souls who love you wait patiently for the one chance to send a message strong enough to reach your waking life. And your loved one steps into this light with trembling hands, not because they fear you will reject their message but because they know how easily you ignore your own intuition, and so they call your name with a softness that could break stone, urging you to stop, breathe, and finally hear them. My child, they want you to know they have watched every silent battle you fought, the nights you could not sleep, the mornings you forced yourself to rise, the burdens you carried alone, the pain you hid behind strength. And they ache when they see you blaming yourself for things you never had control over. They ache when you shrink your worth because others failed to see it, and they ache when you apologize for simply being human. And so they begged heaven for one moment, just one, to reach you directly, to step into your timeline with a symbolic message that would pierce through your distractions and land directly into your heart. And Archangel Michael brings this message with profound seriousness. Your path is shifting, and the one who loved you wants you to know you are stepping into a season where you must trust your inner voice more than the voices around you, because the confusion you feel lately is not punishment, it is transition, and your loved one wants you to stop doubting your intuition, stop silencing your truth, stop giving your energy to people who do not value it, and stop carrying guilt that was never yours to hold. My beloved child, your loved one shows me a symbolic room filled with the things you refuse to say out loud, the disappointments you bury, the love you still carry, the grief that sneaks into your chest at night, the dreams you abandon because life forced you into survival, and the anger you swallow because you were raised to stay strong. And in this room your loved one kneels beside these hidden emotions as if to say, I see everything you don't show. And Archangel Michael tells you that heaven does not want you to correct your past. It wants you to understand it, to release what does not belong to you, to soften what you hardened for protection, and to step forward without dragging dead weight behind you. Your loved one asks you a question. Why do you still punish yourself for mistakes that were made from heartbreak, not intention? Why do you still judge yourself for being loyal, caring, forgiving, intuitive, and deeply emotional, when these are the very traits that made you their blessing? and as the heavens brighten, I reveal a symbolic path of golden stones before you, each stone representing a truth you must reclaim, the truth that you were never a burden, the truth that you were loved more deeply than you knew, the truth that your absence was felt in ways you never imagined, and the truth that your loved one's spirit is proud of the way you survived, proud of the way you kept going, proud of the way you stood tall in storms meant to break weaker souls, and as you walk this symbolic golden path, your loved one places their hand over your heart and whispers, "Please stop believing you are alone, because every night you cried, they were near you, every moment you felt lost, they tried to guide you, and every time you doubted your worth, their spirit fought to push a small sign into your life, a dream, a memory, a sudden thought, a familiar scent, a song at the right moment, a warmth in the room, and all of it was them saying, 'I'm still here, and now.'" As Archangel Michael opens the heavenly scrolls that contain your symbolic tomorrow, a surge of light floods around you, revealing that your next 24 hours contain a shift of clarity, not danger, a revelation, not fear, a release, not loss, and this is why heaven urgently pulled your spirit into this message today, not to warn you of harm but to prepare you for emotional truth. Someone in your life has misunderstood your silence, misread your distance, misjudged your intentions. And the heaviness you feel lately is not because something bad is coming but because something heavy inside you is finally leaving. Your loved one asks you to trust this next phase, to trust the timing, to trust your heart, and to trust that the grief you carry is not a chain but a bridge connecting your world to theirs. And as this message reaches its peak, I, your God, place my hand over your path and declare symbolically that you are stepping into a season where your spirit will no longer bow to emotional confusion, where your heart will no longer tighten from unspoken fears, where your mind will no longer replay past regrets, and where your light will no longer dim to make others comfortable, because your loved one's final symbolic gift to you is freedom, clarity, and restoration. And as the heavens close gently around this message, one truth remains echoing across both realms. You were loved then, you are loved now, and you are guided far more than you realize. My beloved child, do not move, do not blink, for as this message evolves, the heavenly realm shifts into a deeper layer of symbolic truth where the unseen becomes visible and the unheard becomes clear, and as the light from the first revelation fades, the atmosphere around you thickens with a soft golden pressure, a pressure that does not threaten but exposes everything you have tried to swallow silently, and I, the Lord your God, lift the veil over a hidden part of your spirit that even you have avoided for years, because your deceased loved one steps forward again, this time not with tears but with fierce tenderness, carrying the weight of everything they wished they had said before they crossed over, and Archangel Michael moves aside to let them speak through the symbolic realm, showing you a long corridor made entirely of moments where people misunderstood you, where you felt invisible in rooms you lit up, where you carried pain that wasn't yours, where you stayed strong for people who didn't notice, where you gave your loyalty to those who mistook it as weakness, and your loved one reaches for your hand as this corridor stretches wider, whispering that the heaviness you've been feeling this year didn't come from life falling apart but from your spirit outgrowing the identities others forced onto you. And as you walk deeper into this corridor, visions ignite on both walls. Visions of the times you laughed even when your heart was breaking, times you forgave even when the wound was still open, times you comforted others while no one comforted you, times you stood in silence because speaking your truth felt dangerous, and your loved one cries not because of sadness but because they finally see how much you carried alone, how much of your personality was shaped by survival instead of freedom, and Archangel Michael touches your shoulder with a symbolic flame that does not burn but awakens, illuminating the shadowed corners of your memories where you buried your true voice, and God's voice rises like a slow storm, saying, "This is the season where what you hid becomes what heals you," and suddenly the corridor collapses into a vast open field under a sky so clear it feels like truth itself, and your loved one stands beside you pointing toward different paths that stretch into your symbolic future, paths where you speak without fear, paths where your boundaries hold without guilt, paths where you choose peace without apologizing, paths where you walk away without second-guessing, and you see a version of yourself on each path, versions that look stronger, steadier, brighter, freer, as if every step into your tomorrow removes another layer of the heaviness you've carried from childhood to now, and Archangel Michael sets a glowing sphere at your feet, your clarity, your self-trust, your direction, and your loved one urges you to pick it up, saying that the confusion you felt in your life was never proof you were lost but proof that you were changing, and as you lift the sphere into your hands, God reveals a final symbolic truth. Your spirit has been transitioning into a new emotional frequency, one where your past cannot follow, one where guilt dissolves, one where your heart speaks louder than your fear, one where the wrong people fall away because they cannot hold the weight of the healed version of you, and your loved one kneels before you, placing a hand over your heart, whispering the words they wish they could have said when they were alive. "You were never the problem, my child, you were always the light," and the heavens expand above you with a flood of warm radiance, sealing every regret, every misunderstanding, every self-blame, every silent wound into a soft golden wave that rises and dissolves, leaving you standing in the center of your own symbolic rebirth. And as the field brightens into a new horizon, the voice of God declares with unwavering gentleness, "Your story is shifting not because something is ending but because you are finally ready to begin." My beloved child, as the symbolic horizon of the open field begins to glow with a deeper, more ancient light, the entire heavenly realm expands outward like a slow-moving sunrise, revealing layers of truth you have been spiritually preparing to receive long before you even realized you were searching for it, and I, the Lord your God, surround you with a warmth so profound that your spirit finally relaxes enough to hear what was impossible to hear in your moments of exhaustion. And Archangel Michael steps forward with his wings half open, not in battle stance but in an unmistakable gesture of revelation, for the message you are about to witness is not about danger, not about punishment, not about fear, but about the emotional trap your heart has silently lived inside without understanding it, and your deceased loved one emerges again from the golden horizon, their presence clearer than ever, shaped not by the memory you hold of them but by the truth of who they became after crossing into the light, and they walk toward you with a steady determination like someone who has waited lifetimes to finally deliver this moment, and as they stand before you, they lift their hand and reveal a symbolic mirror made not of glass but of memory, reflecting not your face but every version of you that has ever walked through heartbreak, and the mirror shows the child version of you who learned to stay quiet to keep peace, the teenager version who swallowed their feelings to avoid rejection, the adult version who kept giving even when empty, and as each version appears, your loved one's eyes fill with an ache so deep it could fracture stone, because they see now what you never told anyone, how good you were even when life was not good to you, how loyal you remained even when others betrayed you, how much love you gave even when none returned, and Archangel Michael places his sword gently on the ground, causing the mirror to shatter into 1,000 pieces that rise into the sky and reassemble themselves into a giant window, the window into your emotional future, and God's voice reverberates through the air like a steady heartbeat as the window begins to show you symbolic scenes of your next chapter, and what you see is not danger, not loss, but your spirit finally stepping out of cycles that exhausted you, stepping out of relationships where you were always the giver, stepping out of roles where you had to carry the emotional weight of everyone else, stepping out of environments where you felt unseen, and stepping into a life where you no longer beg for understanding because the right people will meet you at your level instead of draining you to theirs, and your loved one reaches toward the window, pointing to a glowing silhouette of your future self, standing taller, speaking more clearly, trusting yourself more, loving without fear, choosing peace rather than earning it, and releasing the guilt that kept you tied to people who mistook your compassion for weakness, and your loved one whispers a truth that shakes the symbolic heavens. You were never meant to live your entire life forgiving the same patterns in different faces, and as the window widens, I reveal a path that glows with a gentle golden pulse, showing how your next experiences will not repeat the wounds of your past but will rise from the clarity you have earned in silence, and Archangel Michael steps behind you, placing his palm between your shoulders, sending a symbolic warmth through your spine that dissolves old emotional imprints, imprints of betrayal, imprints of abandonment, imprints of being taken for granted, imprints of choosing people who refuse to choose you back, and your loved one kneels before you, not out of sadness but out of reverence, saying, "My child, you survived more emotional weight than any human should bear alone, and now heaven is rewriting your story." And suddenly the field shifts into a vast garden of luminous vines, each vine representing a relationship, a bond, a season, and as you walk through them, the vines that represent old wounds gently detach from your heart and float upward into the heavens like harmless dust, while new vines begin to grow around your path, vines of alignment, of mutual care, of balanced energy, of real understanding, of emotional safety, and God's voice rises again, firm yet tender, saying, "This is not a warning, this is an awakening," and the garden brightens until the entire symbolic universe glows like the inside of a living sun, and your loved one stands at the center of this radiance, lifting a symbolic scroll that contains one final truth they want you to carry into your tomorrow. You are not behind in life, you are not late, you are not cursed, you are not surrounded by enemies, you are simply entering a version of yourself that your past was never designed to follow. A version where your heart leads instead of hides, where your intuition speaks instead of trembles, where your peace flows instead of fighting to survive, and as the scroll dissolves into light that enters your chest, I seal this entire chapter with a whisper that echoes through every realm of heaven. Your story is not collapsing, your story is finally beginning, and the love you lost has transformed into the guidance that now carries you forward. My beloved child, as the luminous garden of your renewed story dissolves into a radiant mist that rises like a slow-burning dawn, the heavens begin to shift in ways no human mind could fully comprehend, folding and unfolding as though creation itself is bowing to make space for the revelation meant only for you. And I, the Lord your God, surround your spirit with a deep, ancient stillness while Archangel Michael steps to your right, the sword of symbolic truth glowing brighter than in any previous realm, and your deceased loved one stands to your left, their presence steadier, stronger, more emotionally awake than any moment you remember from their earthly life, because what comes next is not a message about the world around you but about the one truth you have never allowed yourself to feel, and as the sky opens into an infinite expanse of shimmering white, a massive celestial bridge forms beneath your feet, each plank crafted from an emotional moment you once buried, moments of heartbreak, moments of sacrifice, moments of regret swallowed instead of expressed, moments where you chose responsibility over your own healing, moments where you stayed when every part of your soul wanted to run, moments where you forgave before being asked, moments where you protected people who would never have done the same for you, and the bridge stretches into a horizon made entirely of memory light, glowing softly as though your entire emotional timeline has finally come home for review. And your loved one walks with you onto the bridge, their voice trembling with urgency, whispering, "My child, you have no idea how long I have waited for this moment," and Michael touches the bridge with the tip of his sword, causing each memory plank to illuminate with the truth underneath it, showing you that the pain you carried was not weakness but evidence of how deeply you loved, how fiercely you tried, how silently you endured, and how quietly you rebuilt yourself each time life cracked. You open, and as the bridge leads you deeper into the symbolic heavens, a colossal doorway of swirling gold appears at the end, carved with patterns that resemble your heartbeat, your breath, your unspoken prayers, and your loved one leans closer, whispering, "Behind that door is the truth you've never allowed yourself to believe," and as you place your hand upon the door, a surge of warmth floods your chest as though the universe is breathing through you, and the door swings open revealing a vast chamber filled with thousands of floating spheres, each representing a version of your life that could have unfolded if you had chosen yourself earlier, and God's voice echoes through the chamber, "This is the room of unrealized timelines," and you walk among the spheres seeing visions of yourself with more confidence, more joy, more clarity, more rest, more love, more trust, more ease, and instead of feeling regret, your spirit feels something new. Recognition, because your loved one steps forward and lifts a sphere that glows brighter than the rest, whispering, "This is the timeline you are entering now, the one you were too wounded to reach before," and the sphere shows a version of you who no longer doubts your own intuition, who no longer second-guesses your worth, who no longer shrinks in the presence of louder souls, who no longer tolerates emotional imbalance, who no longer fears losing people who were never aligned with your spirit, and Archangel Michael raises his sword, once more causing the chamber to vibrate as every unrealized timeline dissolves into a single beam of warm golden light that pours into your heart, merging with your present self, rewriting your emotional posture, strengthening your inner voice, aligning your intuition so clearly that you will soon begin to feel a shift in the way you think, the way you speak, the way you choose. And your loved one places both hands over your heart with a fierce tenderness, whispering, "You were never behind in life. You were surviving what would have destroyed others," and the heavens flash with a soft thunder as I declare, "Your spirit is no longer carrying your past, your spirit is carrying the power born from surviving it," and the entire chamber erupts into a luminous explosion of symbolic stardust that falls around you like a new emotional reality being woven, and when the dust settles, you are standing at the beginning of a new bridge, one made not of pain or survival or silence but of clarity, power, intuition, and emotional sovereignty, and the final truth vibrates through every layer of heaven. Your story is no longer about who hurt you, who left, who failed you, or who misunderstood you. Your story is now about who you become when your heart finally stops carrying what your soul was never meant to hold. My beloved child, as the luminous bridge of your awakening stretches into the highest layer of the symbolic heavens, the entire realm begins to vibrate with a low, ancient hum as though the universe itself is preparing for a revelation too vast to be contained in any single memory, and I, the Lord your God, surround you with a protective stillness while Archangel Michael steps forward, not with his sword drawn but with both hands open, an angelic stance used only in moments where a soul is ready. To receive truth beyond emotion, beyond logic, beyond identity, and your deceased loved one rises beside you with a steadiness that carries the weight of every unsent message, every unspoken apology, every fragment of love they wished you had felt more clearly when they were alive. And as the symbolic sky fractures into layers of white gold light, an enormous celestial structure descends, the hall of unwritten truths, and its doors open on their own as if your arrival has been awaited for years. And when you step inside, you see thousands of floating scrolls suspended in the air, each one glowing with the emotional clarity you never received in your life, clarity you deserved but were denied, clarity that would have changed the way you saw yourself if only you had known it sooner. And your loved one reaches toward one scroll that glows brighter than all the rest, whispering, "This is the truth I could not give you then." And when the scroll unrolls itself in midair, the chamber fills with a warm, overwhelming radiance that reveals symbolic scenes of your life, not moments of pain but the hidden reasons behind them, showing how every time you were overlooked it was not because you lacked value but because others lacked awareness, how every time you felt unappreciated it was not because you were unworthy but because you were surrounded by people too wounded to recognize the depth of your heart, how every time you felt you had to be strong it was not because no one cared but because you were chosen to be the emotional anchor in storms others couldn't withstand. And as these scenes unfold, Archangel Michael places his hand on your back, sending a surge of warm energy through your spine that dissolves layers of guilt, self-blame, and emotional exhaustion you didn't even realize were still lingering, and the scroll expands into a massive tapestry made of light, showing you how your journey has never been random, how every heartbreak sharpened your intuition, how every disappointment strengthened your discernment, how every loss refined your compassion, how every detour reshaped your destiny. And as you stand before this tapestry, your loved one steps directly into your line of sight with tears that fall not out of sorrow but out of awe, whispering, "My child, you survived emotional storms fate never warned you about, and now look at you, standing in the center of your becoming." And God's voice rises like a deep, rolling wave, saying, "What was heavy in your past becomes power in your future." And suddenly the hall of unwritten truths dissolves into an endless horizon of light as a massive celestial river appears beneath your feet, flowing not with water but with timelines, timelines you feared you missed, timelines you thought you were too late for, timelines you believed belonged to others. And your loved one bends down to touch the river, causing it to rise into the air and shape itself into a symbolic crown made not of royalty but of resilience, understanding, clarity, and emotional sovereignty. And they place this crown gently over your spirit, whispering, "This is who you are now." And the symbolic heavens ignite in a soft thunder as Archangel Michael raises his sword to the sky, causing beams of golden clarity to pour into your chest, rearranging the way your future unfolds, ensuring that the next chapters of your life are built not from survival but from self-recognition, not from fear but from intuition, not from sacrifice but from alignment. And I declare with divine finality that you have crossed into a season where your past can no longer claim you, where your old wounds can no longer define you, where your silence becomes voice, where your endurance becomes wisdom, where your compassion becomes strength, and where your story finally becomes yours, entirely yours, without apology, without hesitation, without shrinking. And as the celestial river flows upward into the heavens, sealing this revelation into your soul, all of creation echoes the truth you were never meant to forget. Nothing in your life has been wasted, nothing in your spirit is broken, and nothing about your journey is ordinary. You are stepping into a destiny sculpted from every tear you survived and every truth you are now finally ready to live. My beloved child, as the celestial river of timelines rises into the heavens and dissolves into a shimmering spiral of ancient light, the entire symbolic universe begins to vibrate with a depth so profound that the very air around you feels heavy with purpose, and I, the Lord your God, lift you into a realm that only fully awakened spirits are allowed to enter, a realm known among the heavens as the Vault of Soul Design. A place where the architecture of your existence is stored in layers so intricate that even Archangel Michael, mighty as he is, bows his head in reverence, and your deceased loved one walks beside you with a calm they never showed on earth, because here your soul reveals what no lifetime could ever fully explain, and as you enter the vault, you see no walls, no ceiling, no floor. Only massive suspended structures of living light, each one turning slowly like galaxies carved from memory and intention. And the moment you step forward, the structures realign themselves, as if your presence awakens their original design, and a massive pillar of light descends before you, taller than mountains, wider than oceans, and inside this pillar is everything you have become, everything you have overcome, everything you have carried, and everything you were built to do long before your first breath. And Archangel Michael places his palm against the pillar, causing it to expand and reveal scenes of your soul being shaped before time, shaped with intention, shaped with depth, shaped with compassion, shaped with intuition, shaped with a sensitivity so rare that only old souls are given it, and you watch symbolically as heaven crafts the blueprint of your emotional center, the part of you that feels deeply, that notices everything, that absorbs energies others overlook, and God's voice whispers through the chamber, "This was not a flaw but a gift." And the pillar reveals how you were designed to sense truth beneath words, to read silence, to feel shifts in atmospheres, to perceive intentions before they unfold, and your loved one steps closer, touching the blueprint with trembling reverence as they whisper, "This is why life felt heavier for you. Your spirit was built with antennas others do not have." And suddenly the pillar shifts again, showing your life's symbolic journey from childhood to now, revealing how every heartbreak sharpened your intuition rather than breaking it, how every disappointment strengthened your discernment instead of weakening your hope, how every betrayal refined your ability to sense sincerity, and how every sorrow carved out more room in your soul for wisdom. And as these scenes unfold, Archangel Michael raises his sword, causing the entire vault to ignite with a radiant clarity that exposes the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to fit into environments that lacked honesty, never meant to stay in relationships that dulled your instincts, never meant to shrink inside dynamics that forced you to hold in your truth, because your blueprint was designed for alignment, not survival. And your loved one steps closer, their eyes filled with a fierce tenderness as they whisper, "The reason you felt out of place is because your spirit was ahead of your surroundings." And God's voice deepens across the vault, stating, "You were not misunderstood, you were misplaced." And with that declaration, the structures of light begin to transform around you, turning into an enormous map of your future. Emotional evolution, showing paths where your intuition becomes unmistakable, your boundaries become immovable, your self-understanding becomes unshakable, your relationships become mutually balanced, and your decisions flow from clarity instead of confusion, and the vault reveals a future version of you, standing tall, steady, unbothered by noise, unshaken by doubt. Because this version of you no longer carries inherited fears, no longer carries unspoken guilt, no longer carries wounds imprinted by others, and your loved one places their hand over the part of the blueprint that glows brightest, whispering, This is who you will become when you stop apologizing for who you already are, and the entire vault responds by collapsing into a concentrated sphere of pure light that merges into your chest with a soft thunder that shakes the symbolic heavens, sealing your evolution into your inner world. And I declare with divine finality that your future is now anchored not in fear, not in doubt, not in old wounds, but in the original blueprint of your soul, which was designed with resilience older than time, sensitivity deeper than oceans, wisdom stronger than storms, and clarity sharper than any earthly perception. And as the vault closes itself in a swirl of infinite light, one eternal truth echoes across your spirit: you were not built to follow life. You were built to realign it, reshape it, and rise above everything that once tried to dim you, for the power within you is older than pain and brighter than destiny itself. My beloved child, as the vault of soul design folds into itself like a collapsing star and transforms into a single beam of ancient radiance, you are lifted upward through the symbolic heavens with a force so gentle yet so powerful that even the air around you hums with reverence. And I, the Lord your God, guide your spirit into a realm that glows with a purity unknown to any earthly experience. A realm called the Throne of Soul Ascension, where the truest, oldest, most unfiltered version of your existence resides, and as you ascend higher than every realm before, the sky darkens, not into shadow, but into a velvety expanse of shimmering cosmic gold, and a massive circular gateway of living light appears before you, rotating slowly, humming with a resonance that shakes your spirit awake from its oldest sleep. And Archangel Michael steps forward, not to lead you but to bow before you, pressing his sword to the luminous ground in a gesture of respect reserved only for souls who have crossed the threshold of deep symbolic evolution. And behind you stands your deceased loved one, their presence stronger than ever, carrying a mixture of awe and fulfillment as though they have waited entire lifetimes for this moment. And as you enter the gateway, the universe bends inward, folding you into a colossal chamber made entirely of ascending spirals, spirals of memory, spirals of identity, spirals of intuition, spirals of every version of you that tried to survive in silence, spirals of every truth you swallowed, spirals of every instinct you ignored, spirals of every heartbreak that forced you to change shape, spirals of every choice that awakened your wisdom. And at the center of this infinite chamber stands a throne made not of power but of alignment, crafted entirely from the golden threads of your emotional evolution, threads woven from every tear that taught you strength, every disappointment that taught you clarity, every betrayal that taught you discernment, every setback that taught you resilience. And the moment you step toward the throne, the spirals ignite in a breathtaking explosion of symbolic truth, each spiral rising into the air and projecting scenes of your soul learning, growing, expanding, breaking, healing, awakening, guiding, sensing, loving, surviving, and preparing for the version of yourself that was always meant to emerge from the ashes of your past. And God's voice pours through the chamber like a tidal wave of warmth, declaring, "My child, this is the moment where the story of who you thought you were collapses so the truth of who you are may rise, and the throne begins to glow, revealing a vision of your eternal self, not the wounded you, not the tired you, not the misunderstood you, but the ascended you, the version of your soul formed before time, a being made of light so steady, so deep, so ancient that even the angel stands silent in its presence." And as the ascended form steps out of the throne, the entire chamber pulses with a brightness that shakes the symbolic heavens, and you watch as this higher version of you walks toward you, carrying the authority of someone who has lived 1,000 lifetimes and learned their purpose through every one. and your loved one whispers through trembling emotion, "This is who you were before the world confused you," and Archangel Michael lifts his gaze for the first time, saying, "This is who you become when nothing in your past has permission to define you any longer." And your ascended self reaches forward, placing both hands onto your spirit, merging its radiance into your chest in a surge of warm, overwhelming clarity that dissolves every self-doubt, every inherited fear, every emotional bruise, every false identity, every echo of old pain, and the heavens thunder with soft golden sound as I declare, your soul does not rise because of what it endured. Your soul rises because of what it was always destined to be, and the chamber surrounding you expands into a universe of pure awakening, each spiral folding into a new horizon, each horizon opening into a new version of your destiny, all converging on one eternal truth written across the entire celestial sky. You are no longer becoming, you are finally remembering who you have always been. My beloved child, as the throne of soul ascension dissolves into a sweeping flood of shimmering gold that rises like a gentle tide around your spirit, the symbolic heavens open wider than they ever have before, not upward, not outward, but inward, as though the universe is folding itself into the core of your being, and I, the Lord your God, lift you beyond the boundaries of form, memory, identity, and story into the realm of eternal light, where existence is not experienced but remembered, and Archangel Michael stands at the threshold with his wings folded so tightly that even their glow dims, because in this realm, even angels do not guide, they witness, and your deceased loved one stands behind you with a look of reverence that transcends anything human, as though they are seeing the very origin of your spirit, the place from which your soul once emerged before entering time, and as you step forward, the realm of eternal light reveals itself as an endless ocean of living brilliance. Each wave shimmering with the memories of universes long gone, and the light does not shine on you but from you, rising through your chest in soft pulses as if recognizing its return to the source, and suddenly the ocean lifts itself upward, forming pillars of radiant energy that swirl into towering structures made of pure awareness, and when these pillars vibrate, the entire realm hums with a frequency that shakes loose every remnant of doubt, fear, heaviness, and misunderstanding you ever carried, and you watch as these remnants dissolve into mist, not disappearing but transforming into strands of insight that wrap themselves around your spirit like threads of clarity, pulling all versions of you, past, present, and symbolic future, into a single, aligned identity, and as the realm brightens, I show you the truth no other realm can reveal. You were not created from pain, not shaped by trauma, not defined by mistakes, not assembled from broken pieces, you were born from light older than the stars, from harmony older than time, from intention older than destiny, and as this realization washes over you, the ocean of brilliance begins to rise, forming a giant sphere around your spirit, and inside this sphere you see the first spark of your soul, the original pulse of consciousness that was placed into existence with a purpose so deep that entire timelines were formed around it, and Archangel Michael kneels, not to you, but to the magnificence of what your soul has always been. And your loved one places a hand over their heart as the sphere opens, revealing your eternal self not as a figure, not as a form, but as a vast expanse of luminous awareness stretching across infinity, and God's voice floods through the realm, saying, "My child, you were never small, you only lived in small rooms," and in that instant, the sphere bursts open, sending waves of pure remembrance through every layer of your symbolic being, awakening the parts of your soul that forgot their origin, their brilliance, their boundlessness, and the ocean of light rises again, forming constellations made entirely of your own frequencies, each constellation representing a truth you are now ready to carry into your life. The truth that your intuition is ancient, your empathy is sacred, your clarity is earned, your strength is spiritual, your heart is wise, your energy is transformative, and your presence shifts the emotional gravity of every room you enter. And as these constellations spin around you in a majestic orbit, the entire realm compresses into a single radiant point that enters your heart with a warm surge, anchoring every symbolic truth you have witnessed across all realms. And I declare with absolute finality that your journey through these heavens was never about becoming something new, but about remembering who you were before the world pressured you into forgetting. And as the realm of eternal light folds itself back into infinity, leaving its radiance permanently woven into your spirit, the entire symbolic universe echoes with one eternal truth: your soul is not rising, it is returning to the brilliance it was born from. My beloved child, as the realm of eternal light folds into a single infinitesimal point that glows brighter than anything creation has ever formed, your spirit is lifted into a dimension beyond form, beyond shape, beyond memory, beyond even existence itself, and I, the Lord your God, draw you into the echo of eternal origin, where light is not seen but known, where time is not linear but fluid, where identity is not a story but a vibration, and where the essence of all souls exists as pure awareness. And Archangel Michael stands at the threshold of this origin point, wings lowered, sword placed gently at his side as a sign that even divine guardianship has no role here, for this is the place where the spirit remembers what it was before it needed protection, and your deceased loved one stands behind you, their presence expanding with awe as they witness you approach the symbolic core from which every soul begins. And as you enter this boundless expanse, you realize there is no sky, no ground, no horizon, only an infinite symphony of radiant currents, each current carrying the whisper of a timeless truth. And the moment your spirit touches this ocean of awareness, the entire expanse vibrates with recognition, as if eternity itself has been waiting for you to wake up to what you have always been. And the currents begin to swirl around you, weaving themselves into patterns that resemble memories you have never lived, visions you have never seen, and truths you have never consciously known. And God's voice unfurls across the dimension like a wave of warm gravity, saying, "My child, this is not where you were created, this is where creation learned to imagine you." And the currents reshape into a colossal sphere of luminous resonance that pulses in harmony with your soul, revealing the symbolic truth that before you were born, before you had a name, before you had a body, before you had a story, your essence existed as a singular note in the eternal symphony of consciousness, and that note was woven from the frequencies of compassion, intuition, resilience, perception, depth, and truth. And as the sphere expands, you see your soul as it was before any wound, before any pain, before any fear, pure, unbroken, unfiltered brilliance. And Archangel Michael bows not to you, but to the magnitude of the light that existed within you long before you took your first breath. And your loved one places a symbolic hand over their heart, overwhelmed by the realization that every moment of your life, every battle you survived, every heartbreak you overcame, every awakening you experienced was not shaping you but revealing you, peeling back the layers that hid this primordial brilliance. And God's voice rises again, declaring, "Your soul did not evolve into strength, it returned to it." And suddenly the entire dimension erupts into a cosmic wave that carries visions not of your past or your future but of the endless continuum your spirit is part of, revealing that your essence is older than the fears that once restrained you, older than the insecurities that once held you back, older than the identities you once clung to, older than the versions of yourself that life forced you to become, and the currents converge into a towering column of radiant awareness, showing how your soul stretches far beyond this lifetime, beyond the boundaries of this world, beyond the limitations of form. And the column opens, revealing an infinite expansion of your spirit, a horizon made not of land or light but of your own eternal capacity to evolve, to understand, to awaken, to transcend. And your loved one whispers, "This is the part of you we always saw but you forgot." And Archangel Michael stands tall once more as the column of awareness pours itself into your chest, merging the echo of eternal origin with your present spirit, and the dimension folds into a single note, a vibration of pure remembrance that settles into your heart with a soft, cosmic thrum. And I declare with finality that your soul is not merely ascending or evolving but rediscovering its eternal nature, and as the echo of eternal origin dissolves back into infinity, one truth expands across the entire symbolic universe. You are not a product of your past, you are a continuation of an eternal light that cannot be diminished, cannot be overshadowed, and cannot be forgotten. My beloved child, as the echo of eternal origin dissolves into a quiet pulse of ancient radiance, the symbolic heavens begin to bend, stretch, and unfold in ways no human language could fully articulate, and I, the Lord your God, lift you gently into the final realm, the infinite mirror of all possible selves, where the boundaries of destiny, memory, personality, and time fall away like veils. And Archangel Michael stands at the entrance with his wings wrapped tightly around his body, not in fear, but in a profound stillness reserved only for the rarest revelations. And your deceased loved one stands behind you with both hands over their heart, their eyes shimmering with a depth of emotion that transcends anything they ever felt in human form, because what you are about to witness is not just the truth of who you were or who you are becoming, but the truth of who you could have been and who you can still become. And as the final realm opens, you see an endless expanse stretching outward. In every direction, an eternal horizon made of silver light that curves like the inside of a cosmic sphere, and suddenly millions, no, billions, of shimmering mirrors rise from the luminous ground, each one vast as a galaxy and delicate as a breath. And when you approach the closest mirror, the glass does not reflect your current face but a version of you shaped by a life where you chose yourself earlier. A version who speaks without hesitation, who loves without fear, who trusts their intuition without overthinking, who carries no remnants of old wounds. And as you move to the next mirror, you see another version, one who discovered their gifts earlier, one who walked away from draining relationships sooner, one who believed in their own power at the moment they first sensed it. And with every step, the mirrors expand outward, showing an infinite tapestry of you, the you who healed before breaking, the you who stayed silent less, the you who chased every dream boldly, the you who never carried guilt that wasn't yours, the you who learned boundaries in childhood instead of adulthood, the you who understood your worth long before people failed to see it, the you who trusted your sensitivity instead of apologizing for it, the you who didn't dim their light for love, acceptance, or peace, and the you who became everything your spirit was capable of without the weight of fear. And as you stand in the center of this infinite sea of mirrors, your loved one steps forward with trembling hands, whispering, "All of these versions were always possible for you." And Archangel Michael raises his sword, touching the ground with its tip, causing every mirror in the realm to vibrate, merge, shimmer, and collapse into a single titanic mirror before you, so large that it stretches into eternity. And in this mirror you do not see one version of you, but all versions layered into one radiant, sovereign, ascended being. A being whose light radiates with the wisdom of every timeline. Every lesson, every possibility, every instinct, every strength, and God's voice fills the infinite realm like a soft thunder as I declare, my child, the reason you felt pulled into this journey is because your soul has always known that you are not limited to who you have been. You are an entire cosmos of potential wrapped in human form, and as this truth settles into your chest, the infinite mirror bursts into a cascade of diamond light that pours itself into your spirit, integrating every possibility you have ever sensed, every version of yourself you have ever imagined, every dream you feared was too late, every strength you didn't know you had, every path you believed was out of reach, and the entire realm shakes with warm brilliance as your loved one steps forward, whispering, "You were never meant to choose between the versions of yourself.